Okay, we have chapter 3.1 now. We have a bunch of vocabulary, which I'm going to use as we are doing these equations. And so if you forget any of the words that I'm saying and you come across it, it's right here on this page. We've got some concepts which we'll come across as I'm doing stuff today. If you forget, you can go back and look. Example 1, we're going to solve the equation by factoring. Okay, so what I've done now is I've given you an equation, x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. And it says solve each equation by graphing. If you're asked to solve, that means you're finding what a variable equals. So when you look at this picture, when you look at this equation, what variable do you not know what it equals? What variable are we solving for? We're solving for x. Is there a y in it? There's not a y. So what we're doing is we're just solving an equation. But we can use what we learned on Friday's assignment to solve it. And you can see I have a graph there. On Friday we were graphing. And on Friday, if there was a y in the equation, where was the y now? 0. So what we did was we made y 0. And if we make y 0, what are the x's? If y is 0, what are the x's on the graph? They're the x-intercepts. So in order to solve this, we're just going to find our x-intercepts. There are different ways of finding the x-intercepts. But the way that I taught you last week, I think is the easiest. What did we do on Friday? Those of us that did our assignment to find the x-intercept. Back to the big F. We factored it. So can we factor this equation? It's trinomial. Is there a GCF? There's not a GCF. So x squared, that means I'm going to have an x and an x. What about the signs? They're going to be different. So 1 plus and 1 minus. How do I get minus 6? 2 and 3 or 6 and 1. So I'm going to make a guess. And then whatever I guess, I'm going to have to check to see that they actually add back together to give me what answer in the middle. Negative 1x. So when I'm thinking about that, what number out of the 2 and the 3, it's not going to be a 6 and a 1. Out of the two numbers, what is going to be the negative? It's going to be a 2 and a 3 to multiply together to give us negative 6. So if I make the 3 negative and the 2 positive, when I multiply them back together and I get 2x minus 3x, that will give me a negative 1x, right? So there's my factor, my guess, and then my check. So then where are the x-intercepts going to be? So now the question is asking me, by the way, I'm not going to find any more information. It's going to look something like this. Oh, what's the y-intercept? I can do that one really easily. What's the y-intercept? What's the y-intercept if I plug in 0? Negative 6. It's going to be like something like that. Approximately. We don't have to be perfect now. The question was to solve for x. So what we did is we factored it, and we solved each factor for x. Those were our x-intercepts. The question was not to find the x-intercepts. The question was to solve for x. These numbers are the exact same numbers as solving for x. So I'm going to write x equals, and we're going to put this in set notation, which means that we have fancy brackets, because there's more than one answer. We always put the lower answer first. So the bigger answer last. When we have more than one answer, we list them in order. So again, I was not finding the x-intercept. I mean, I found the x-intercepts, but that's not what the question asked me to do. The question asked me to just solve it. So that's why it's just an x equals, not an ordered pair. Okay? So that's solved by graphing. Let's try another one. Now, if you're solving by graphing, do you have to do it by the factoring method? Or is there other ways you could graph this? Is there another way we could graph it? When it's in this form, what else could I find? Find the axis of symmetry. That's x equals negative b over 2a. So negative 8 over 2 times 1. So 8 over 2, x equals 4. I could plug that back in and get my vertex. What else could I get? Is there a stretch or a shrink? No stretch or shrink, so what do I know about the rest of the points? Yeah, the over 1 up 1, over 2 up 4, over 3 up 9. What am I trying to find on this graph if I'm solving by graphing? What am I trying to find if I'm solving by graphing? I'm looking at the x-intercepts. That's what I'm looking at, but those aren't the answers. The answers just solve it. So my answers are just what x equals, but we're using the x-intercepts to help us find the answer. So what does x equal at each of these? Well, I'm going to write 2 first, because we're going to go left to right. We're going to go smaller to bigger, so it'll be 2 then 6. So that's another way you could graph it to figure out the answer. See, I used no factoring in that one. Which way seemed easier? The first way or the second way? This is an opinion. Second way? What? The factoring way? All right, so let's try number 2. And you can choose which one you want to do. If you want to do negative b over 2a and graph AOS and find the vertex and figure out the stretch and graph it, or if you'd like to try to factor it, I'd like you to try something. The goal is let's find the x-intercepts, because that x value is going to be the answer. One of those here, and I saw that the stretch, like there isn't a stretch, so it's just apparent. So it goes like up, over, up to. That's what it said. Or you could like plug in you find the y-intercept, but the price goes ahead and y-intercept is a 12. We'll get there. Yeah. So then I decided that would be easiest. Oh, are you doing something that somebody else saw you? quite sure where you're going from there, because there is a way to multiply those together and kind of figure it out and begin to unmultiply it afterwards. However you do it when you're done, if you multiply these two back together, they're going to have to equal 4x. So I know you're not done yet. But when you're done, these two multiply together, they're going to either have to be 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. Okay. I kind of walked around. I have an idea, but just show of hands so other people can see. How many people are trying by finding the AOS by doing negative b over 2a? How many people are trying it that way? Well, more than you. More than that were trying it when I walked around. You changed your mind? Okay. How many people were trying it by factoring when I was all right, and then about 6 of you didn't raise your hand. However you do it, that's fine. But the more you factor, the faster you're going to get at it. And when I look at this and I see minus then plus, it tells me both are minuses. So I'm going to have to guess, am I doing 2x and 2x or 4x and 1x? So I have to guess. I'm not sure. I have to guess. And then I have to guess if I'm doing 9 and 1 or 3 and 3. So I'm making a guess. But then I have to check. So this definitely equals 4x squared. The last one definitely equals plus 9. The inside is now minus 6x, and the outside is minus 6x. Will that give me minus 12x? Okay. So I've got 2x minus 3 and 2x minus 3. They're the same. Factoring it, we would have written as 2x minus 3 squared. But solving it, you have to set each equal to 0. So you should get 3 over 2, which is 1.5. And there's only one. I mean, there's two. They're the exact same answer, so you write it just as one answer. Did you do that? Did you get that if you're doing the AOS way, or did you not quite finish? Did you get it? Did you get that as your axis of symmetry, or you get it as your x-intercept? Right. Because this one, the axis of symmetry and the axis and the vertex, thank you, are the exact same. But you would need to know that. You'd have to keep going. So our only answer is 3 over 2 or 1.5. All right, this last one, you see how it's set up where there's stuff on different sides of the equation? In order to do this, you have to make y 0. There's no y in it. You have to make 0 on one side of the equation, move everything else over. And I personally like the x squared term to be positive. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides and add 2x squared to both sides. So I have to have 0 on one side of this equation to do the x-intercepts. And then I cannot combine 2x squared and 6x because they're not like terms, so I just write them next to each other. And then I am choosing to do this by factoring. You could choose to do this by finding the axis of symmetry, plugging it in, finding the vertex, finding more points, and figuring out where the x-intercepts are. I'm going to do this by factoring, if it factors. I know it has to be 2x and x. Oh. Okay, have a good one. Okay, so for number 3, in order to get a 2x squared right in front, you have to have a 2x and an x. To get a 21 and minus 21 at the end, we're going to have one positive and one negative. I don't know which one goes with 2x or which one goes with x, so I'm not going to put that in yet. I also have to have either a 1 and 21 or a 3 and a 7. What do you just like intuition think it is? 1 and 21 or 3 and 7? Okay. So I'm just going to put in a 3 and a 7. And I'm going to multiply those back together. It's going to be 14x, and that's going to give me a 3x. Is there any way I can get a 6x from that? Okay, so What if I put the 3 here, the 7 here? That's going to give me a 6x out there and a 7x. Am I going to get a 6x in the middle? Did I give you one that's not factorable? Okay. It was 2x squared plus 6x minus 21. What? Oh, let me change this. I was using this in pre-calc. So yeah, so here's where trying to find the x-intercepts by the method we're using isn't always so great, because the x-intercept is not a nice answer. I did look ahead, and all the ones that I gave you in homework will have nice answers, so we shouldn't have this problem in homework. But this will lead us into a different lesson that we'll go to. So we won't be able to finish that one. Okay, what your assignment is going to look like is we're going to go to example 3 and 4. I'll come back to the square roots tomorrow. Example 3 or around Thursday. Example 3 and 4. We're going to solve these equations by factoring. So it's exactly what we just did. You're just not going to have a graph with it. But it's the same concept where you're trying to find those x-intercepts on the graph, but this doesn't need a graph. It does, however, need something so that I know I'm finding the x-intercepts. On the x-intercepts, y has to be what? Do I have a 0 in there? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to set one of these sides as 0. So to make it say 0, I'm going to subtract 45 from both sides. If I subtract 45 from both sides, now I can pretend that y is 0, which means I'm finding the x-intercepts, which are going to be the answers. Bless you. So I'm going to do that by factoring. There's no greatest common factor. I have an x and an x. Signs, there's going to be 1 plus and 1 minus. What multiplies together to give us minus 45? 9 and 5. Is that going to somehow give me a minus 4? Which one should be negative? The 9. And then you check it. 4x minus 9x. Yep, that works. Then what do we do with each factor? I'm going to set each of these equal. Oh, yeah. I was thinking of the answer, not what I should have written down. Sorry. Thanks for asking questions instead of just writing down what I wrote. We're going to set each of these equal to 0, and then we're going to solve each of these. So I get x equals negative 5. I get x equals negative 9. Which of those is smaller? Dang it. Which of these is smaller? Negative 5, then 9. There you go. Now, example 4 is right next to it, and example 4 says find the zeros. So this is something I haven't talked about yet. So when they give you an equation and it says find the zeros, what they mean is put in 0 for y and find where the function is equal to 0. That is the same thing that we just did, that's finding the x-intercepts. That's where the function equals 0. So you can see the first one, we just had to move stuff around to make it equal 0. This one, you actually had to replace the f of x as 0 because of the different ways that they're set up in the words that they used. So find the 0 means put in 0. Let's try to factor this. There's no GCF. This will be x into x. Both signs are going to be minus. So what multiplies together to give us 12? 6 and 2 or 4 and 3? We're going to have to multiply one of those numbers by 2 and get an 11 when we're done.
12.
What? Or 12 and 1. We're still going to have to multiply one of these numbers by 2 and get 11 when we're done. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 3. If you didn't see that, well, just start guessing and checking. So minus 3x and minus 8x will work. So how do I find the solutions? I set each vector equal to 0. One of the answers will be 4, but how do I find the other answer? Is it just 3? No, it's not. So you got to add the 3 and then divide by 2. Which answer is smaller? 3/2, or you can write 1.5, and then the 4. So this is what you're going to do in your assignment. You're going to do some to solve by factoring, and then you're going to do some that say find the zeros, but it's doing the same thing. Look down below. Let's try number 8. Let's try number 8. This was solved by factoring. In order to solve it, that's finding the x-intercepts. What do I need to see here? I need to see a 0. Do I see a 0? What should I do so I have a 0? Subtract the 2. It has to be all by itself on one side. No GCF. 3x and x. One of them's plus, one of them's minus. I don't know which is which. What should I do? It's got to be a 2 and a 1. I got to get a 5 in the middle. Any ideas? 3x.
3x minus, plus 1.
Let's just try something. If I put a 2 and a 1 there, we'll just try. Now I have a 2x. I'll flip in a second. And then I have a 3x. One of these is going to be negative and one's going to be positive. Again, I don't know which is which. Oh yeah, I want the higher one because I want it to be a negative. Thank you. You're closer than I am. So that's going to be like a plus 2x and a minus 3x, which will give me a negative 1x. So this is not the right place. So Katie was like, nope, flip them, quick. So put the 2 here and the 1 here, and we want the bigger number to be negative. So here's a 1x, and the outside is 6x, so I want this outside to be negative. And that will give me a negative 5x in the middle. So we set each factor equal to 0. 3x plus 1 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. Let's solve those. I'm going to write it as fancy bracket. Which one's smaller or more negative? Negative 1/3, and then 2. How about number 9? Number 9 says, find the zeros. So do you see a 0 here? So how do I make a 0 for this one? I take out f of x and I put in 0. And what's our first step of factoring? Is there a GCF? So we'll take out that x, and we have left over x minus 8. We'll set each of those, x and x minus 8, each of those equal to 0. We get 0 and positive 8 as our two solutions. Is there a place that you could go to check these answers? Yes. So if you have not used Desmos, we need to get on there and use it real soon. But if you have not used Desmos, D-E-S-M-O-S, if I type in that equation, x squared, what was it, minus 8? Is that what it was, minus 8? X, thank you. I was like, that's not right. Here's one x-intercept at 0, 0, and the other x-intercept at 8, 0. So it automatically, like, even lets you click on x-intercepts. It doesn't let you do that with all the points. Like, if I click somewhere else, it disappears right away. But x-intercepts, it knows they're important. I think it does that with the y-intercept and the vertex as well. Yep, there's your vertex. Oops, moved it. That one that we had just done prior to that, what was that? Thank you. 3x squared minus 2? Oh, it was equals, but then we make it minus. Okay, if it doesn't show up, why? Because I'm like way in the wrong spot. Come on. Oh, there it is. My two answers were 2 and negative 1/3, which they wrote as a decimal. But you should have it as a fraction. So if you'd like to check answers, this is a great way of doing it. This is not a great way of just getting your answers the first time. You have to be able to do that by yourself. All right, the assignment is in the book. It's on page 100. I have lots of books around the room. We also are going to grade that assignment you guys did on Friday. And then the factoring one that we didn't get to grade, you guys need to get on Canvas to grade that. I'll write that down. Because we're going to have a quiz on just factoring. There's going to be a quiz next class on just, or it's Thursday for you all, but next class on just factoring, which is what we did last week.